On the night of April 1st, 2006, security cameras captured 27-year-old medical student Brian Schaefer entering the Ugly Tuna Saloon, a bar in Columbus, Ohio. The cameras show him laughing, talking with friends, and having drinks. But here's what makes this case one of the most baffling disappearances in American history. Those same security cameras never show Brian leaving. The bar had only one public entrance. That entrance was covered by cameras. Every single person who entered the Ugly Tuna that night was captured on video. And almost every person who left was also captured on video. Except Brian Schaefer. Brian walked into that bar and simply vanished. No footage of him leaving. No trace of where he went. No evidence of what happened to him. For nearly 20 years, investigators, his family, and millions of people online have asked the same question. How do you disappear from a bar that has only one exit, when that exit is covered by security cameras? This is the Brian Schaefer case, a mystery that defies logic and has never been solved. This is Untold Cold Cases Files. The Brian Schaefer case is unique because it seems physically impossible. We're not talking about someone disappearing in a forest, or in a foreign country, or in the middle of the night on a deserted road. We're talking about a busy bar in a major American city, surrounded by witnesses, covered by security cameras. And yet Brian Schaefer vanished so completely that nearly 2 decades later, despite extensive investigation, despite national media attention, despite his family's desperate search, no one knows what happened to him. This case has everything. Security footage that raises more questions than answers, a best friend who refused to cooperate with police, theories ranging from accident to murder to voluntary disappearance, and a family that has been searching for answers for almost 20 years. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge Brian's family, particularly his father, Randy Schaefer, who passed away in 2008, never knowing what happened to his son, and Brian's brother, Derek, who continues searching for answers. If you have any information about Brian Schaefer's disappearance, please contact Columbus Police. Now, let's go back to 2006 to a young man who had everything going for him, and one night that changed everything. But before we dive deep into this mystery, I need to ask you something important. Right now, Brian Schaefer's case is almost 19 years old. The chances of solving it grow smaller every day. Witnesses forget details. Evidence degrades. People move away. Memories fade. But there's one thing that can keep this case alive. You. Here's how you can help solve this mystery. First, hit that subscribe button right now. When you subscribe to Untold Cold Cases Files, you're not just watching true crime content. You're joining a community of people who refuse to let these cases be forgotten. We have over 1,000 unsolved cases to cover, and each video is a chance for someone with information to finally come forward. Second, smash that like button. I know, everyone asks for likes, but here's why it actually matters for cases like Brian's. YouTube's algorithm pushes videos with high engagement to more people. More views mean more eyes on Brian's face. More eyes mean a better chance that someone who was at that bar in 2006, someone who saw something, someone who knows something, might finally see this video and come forward. Third, share this video. Post it on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, send it in your family group chat. You might think your aunt in Florida has nothing to do with a case in Ohio, but maybe she has a friend who has a son who was at Ohio State in 2006. 6 degrees of separation. Your share could be the one that reaches the right person. Think about it. If everyone watching this video right now subscribed, liked, and shared, we could get this in front of millions of people. One of those millions might be the person who finally brings Brian home. So pause right now, hit subscribe, hit like, and commit to sharing this video after you watch it. Do it for Brian. Do it for his family who's been searching for 19 years. Okay, now let's get into the story. Brian Randall Schaefer was born on February 25th, 1979, in Pickerington, Ohio, a suburb of Columbus. He grew up in a close-knit, loving family. Brian was the son of Randy and Renee Schaefer. He had one younger brother, Derek. The Schaefer family was middle class and stable, close and supportive, focused on education and achievement, active in their community. Those who knew Brian described him as intelligent and academically gifted, outgoing and sociable, well-liked by peers and adults alike, responsible and dependable, ambitious with clear goals for his future, someone who enjoyed having fun but was never reckless, loyal to friends and family. Brian was not someone who made impulsive decisions. He was not someone who would disappear without telling anyone. He was grounded, stable, and had strong connections to the people around him. Brian excelled in school. He graduated from Pickerington High School. He attended Ohio State University as an undergraduate. He was accepted to Ohio State's College of Medicine. By 2006, Brian was in his second year of medical school. He was studying to become a doctor, a dream he'd had since childhood. Medical school is notoriously difficult. It requires dedication, long hours of study, and intense focus. Brian was succeeding. His grades were good. His professors respected him. He was on track to graduate and begin his residency. By early 2006, Brian was 27 years old and had established an adult life. Girlfriend. Brian was in a serious relationship with Alexis Wagner. They had been dating for several years. They were deeply in love and discussing marriage. Alexis was also committed to her own career and education. They supported each other through the stresses of their respective programs. Friends. Brian had a close group of friends from medical school and undergraduate years. His best friend was William Clint Florence, also a medical student. Brian was social and enjoyed going out, but balanced this with his responsibilities. He was the kind of friend people could rely on. Family. Brian remained very close to his family. He spoke with his parents regularly. He and his brother Derek had a strong relationship. Family was important to Brian. He made time for them despite his busy schedule. In early March 2006, just weeks before Brian's disappearance, something devastating happened. Brian's mother, Renee, died after a battle with myelodysplasia, a rare bone marrow disorder. Renee's illness had been difficult. Brian, as a medical student, understood the medical realities of her condition. He had been there for his mother during her illness, and her death hit him hard. However, those close to Brian said, while he was grieving, he was coping. He was sad, but not despondent. He was functioning, attending classes, seeing Alexis, spending time with friends. He was looking forward to the future, including a planned trip to Miami with Alexis for spring break. In the week leading up to March 31st, 2006, Brian's life was normal. He attended medical school classes. He studied for exams. He spent time with Alexis. He made plans for their upcoming Miami trip, scheduled for April 3rd. He spoke with his father and brother. He went out with friends. There were no signs that Brian was planning to disappear, in danger, suicidal, or mentally unstable, involved in anything risky or criminal, unhappy with his life. Friday, March 31st, 2006, started as a normal day for Brian. Morning/afternoon. Brian likely attended classes or studied. Exact schedule varies in reports. He spoke with Alexis about their plans. He made arrangements to meet his friend Clint Florence that evening. Evening plans. Brian and Clint decided to go out for drinks. They chose the Arena District in Columbus, a popular area near Ohio State's campus with multiple bars and restaurants. The plan was casual. Have some drinks, relax, unwind from the stress of medical school and Brian's recent loss. This was a normal Friday night plan for two young men in their late 20s. Nothing unusual, nothing concerning. Brian had no way of knowing that this ordinary Friday night would be the last time anyone who loved him would see him alive. It's important to understand Brian's state of mind on March 31st because it's relevant to theories about what happened. Was Brian suicidal? Those close to him say absolutely not. He had just made detailed plans for the Miami trip. He was excited about finishing medical school. He and Alexis were planning a future together. While grieving his mother, he was coping and moving forward. Was Brian planning to disappear? Again, those who knew him say this doesn't fit. He took no money beyond what he'd need for a night out. He didn't pack anything. He didn't settle his affairs. He had plans for the next day and the following week. He had no reason to run from his life. Was Brian involved in anything dangerous? By all accounts, no. He wasn't involved with drugs beyond social drinking. He had no debts or financial problems. He wasn't in any kind of trouble. He had no known enemies. Brian Schaefer was a stable, successful, well-adjusted young man who went out for drinks with a friend on a Friday night. And he was never seen again. Let's reconstruct the night of March 31st, 2006, hour by hour, using security footage, witness statements, and investigative records. 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., the evening begins. Brian Schaefer and his best friend Clint Florence met up in the early evening. Clint picked Brian up, and they drove to the Arena District in Columbus. The Arena District is a popular entertainment area featuring multiple bars and restaurants. The nationwide arena, home of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Heavy foot traffic, especially on weekends. A young, college-age crowd. Brian and Clint's plan was to bar hop, visit a few places, have drinks, enjoy the night. 9 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., bar hopping. Brian and Clint visited several establishments in the Arena District. The Ugly Tuna Saloona. They stopped by the Ugly Tuna Saloona first. This would be significant later. They had a drink or two, but didn't stay long initially. Other bars. They moved on to other nearby bars. Exactly which ones and in what order is somewhat unclear, but witnesses and records confirm they were out in the district, drinking and socializing. During this time, Brian appeared in good spirits. He was drinking but not excessively drunk early in the evening. He and Clint were having normal conversation. Nothing seemed wrong. 10:30 p.m. to 11 p.m., meeting Meredith Reed. At some point during the evening, Brian and Clint ran into Meredith Reed, a friend of theirs who was also out in the Arena District. Meredith later told investigators. She saw Brian and Clint at one of the bars. Brian seemed happy and normal. They talked briefly. She made plans to possibly meet up with them later. This encounter is significant because Meredith is one of the last people besides Clint to see Brian and can corroborate his behavior and state of mind. Around 11 p.m., Brian, Clint, and Meredith decided to go back to the Ugly Tuna Saloona. Why the Ugly Tuna? The Ugly Tuna Saloona was a popular bar, especially with Ohio State students. It was known for a tropical/beach theme, tuna, island decor, multiple levels, loud music, crowded atmosphere on weekends, affordable drinks. The bar was located on the second floor of a building at the South Campus Gateway, a mixed-use development with retail, restaurants, and residential space. Midnight, 1 a.m., inside the Ugly Tuna. Brian, Clint, and Meredith entered the Ugly Tuna Saloona around midnight or shortly after. Security cameras at the entrance captured their arrival. This footage would later become crucial to the investigation. The footage shows Brian entering the bar. He's wearing a white shirt and light-colored pants. He appears to be in good spirits. He's with Clint and Meredith. Nothing seems unusual. Inside the bar, witnesses later reported seeing Brian drinking beer, talking with Clint and Meredith, socializing with other patrons, dancing or moving to the music, generally having a good time. The Ugly Tuna was crowded. It was a Friday night, and the bar was packed with people. The atmosphere was loud, energetic, and typical for a college bar on a weekend night. 1 a.m. to 1:55 a.m., the final hour. As the night wore on, Brian continued drinking and socializing. Several details from this time period are important. Brian's interaction with two women. Multiple witnesses, including Clint and Meredith, saw Brian talking with two women at the bar. These women were strangers to Brian, not people he knew, described as attractive and friendly, having a conversation with Brian near the bar area. Witnesses say Brian was chatting with these women in what appeared to be typical bar flirtation. Nothing aggressive or concerning, just friendly conversation. This interaction is significant because some theories suggest these women may have had something to do with Brian's disappearance. However, investigators were never able to definitively identify these women, and it's unclear if they had any role in what happened. Brian's behavior. Clint and Meredith later told investigators that Brian was drinking but didn't seem excessively intoxicated, was happy and enjoying himself, gave no indication anything was wrong, didn't mention leaving or needing to go anywhere, wasn't acting strangely or out of character. The last sighting inside the bar, the last confirmed sighting of Brian inside the Ugly Tuna, was around 1:55 a.m. At this time, Brian was still at the bar. He was still with Clint and Meredith. He was still talking with the two women. The bar was still crowded. What happened in the next few minutes is the heart of the mystery. At approximately 1:55 a.m., security cameras captured Brian Schaefer on the escalator area near the entrance of the Ugly Tuna Saloon. The footage shows Brian is near the entrance/exit area. He appears to be talking to one or both of the women. He's standing, conversing. He seems fine, no signs of distress. This is the last confirmed sighting of Brian Schaefer ever captured on camera. Here's where accounts get murky and conflicting. Clint Florence's account. Clint told police that he and Meredith decided to leave the bar around 2 a.m. He assumed Brian had already left or was leaving separately. He didn't specifically see Brian exit, but the bar was crowded and chaotic. He and Meredith left together. He tried calling Brian later, but got no answer. Meredith Reed's account. Meredith's account is similar. She left with Clint around 2 a.m. She didn't see Brian leave, but assumed he left on his own or was still inside. The bar was closing soon. Bars in Ohio had to close by 2:30 a.m. at the time. The critical question: did Brian leave with someone? Did he leave alone? Did he leave at all? By 2 a.m., the Ugly Tuna Saloon was beginning to close down. Last call had been announced. Bartenders were closing out tabs. Patrons were leaving. Staff was beginning cleanup. Between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m., the bar emptied out. Hundreds of people left the Ugly Tuna and went home. Brian Schaefer was not among them. Or if he was, no one saw him, and no camera caught him. By 2:30 a.m., the Ugly Tuna Saloon was closed. All patrons had left, or so staff believed. The bar was locked. Staff finished closing procedures and went home. Brian Schaefer had vanished. Okay, we need to pause here for a moment because what I'm about to tell you is going to get even stranger and more impossible. But before we continue, I have a serious question for you. Are you really invested in helping solve cases like this? Because here's the reality. Right now, there are detectives in Columbus who have boxes of cold cases sitting in storage. Cases like Brian's. Cases where families are still waiting, still hoping, still searching for answers. Those detectives don't have unlimited resources. They can't work every cold case. They prioritize based on public interest, new leads, and media attention. And that's where you come in. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it right now. Here's why it actually matters. When Untold Cold Cases Files grows, we get access to more resources. We can travel to locations. We can interview people. We can hire experts to analyze evidence. We can work directly with families and law enforcement. Every subscriber makes this channel more powerful, and that power translates directly into solving cases. If you haven't liked this video yet, click that like button now. Because when this video gets enough likes, YouTube's algorithm shows it to people who live in Columbus, people who went to Ohio State, people who were in their 20s in 2006. One of those people might be the person who was at the Ugly Tuna that night. One of them might have the answer. And here's the most important thing. Commit right now to sharing this video when you're done watching. Think about someone you know who loves true crime. Think about someone who went to Ohio State. Think about someone who lived in Columbus. Send them this video. Post it on Reddit, on Facebook, on Twitter. Because here's what's incredible about Brian's case. We have security footage. We have a specific location. We have a specific time. We have witnesses who are still alive. This case can be solved. The information is out there. We just need to get this video in front of the right person. So I'm asking you personally, will you help? Will you subscribe, like, and share this video? Will you be part of the team that finally brings Brian Shaffer home? Do it right now. I'll wait. Okay, let's continue with the story because things are about to get really weird. To understand how Brian Shaffer could disappear, we need to understand the layout of the Ugly Tuna Saloon and the building it was in. The Ugly Tuna Saloon was located in the South Campus Gateway, a modern mixed-use development near Ohio State's campus. The building housed retail stores on the ground floor, restaurants and bars, including the Ugly Tuna, on upper floors, possibly office or residential space. The bar occupied space on the second floor. Here's what's important about the layout. The main entrance. There was one main public entrance to the Ugly Tuna Saloon. This entrance was accessed via escalator from the ground floor. To enter the bar, you rode the escalator up, walked through the entrance. To exit, you walked out the entrance and rode the escalator down. Security cameras. Security cameras covered the main entrance/exit. These cameras captured everyone entering and exiting throughout the night. The footage was time-stamped and recorded continuously. The bar interior. The bar had multiple areas. Main bar area, seating areas, possibly multiple rooms. It was not a small bar. It could accommodate many people. During busy nights, it was crowded, loud, and chaotic. This is the central mystery of the Brian Shaffer case. If Brian didn't leave through the main entrance, and cameras show he didn't, how did he leave? Possible alternative exits. Service/employee exit. Investigators confirmed there was a service exit used by employees. This exit led to a back area and eventually to a different part of the building. It was not a public exit. It was for staff only. It may have led to a service corridor, loading area, or stairwell. Could Brian have left through this exit? Possibly, but he would need to know about it. He would need to access it without staff noticing. It would be unusual for a patron to use this exit. Construction exits. At the time of Brian's disappearance, there was reportedly some construction or renovation work happening in the building or nearby. Some reports suggest there may have been construction exits or openings. These would have been temporary and possibly not secured. A patron might have accessed these if they were looking for an alternative way out. However, details about construction are murky, and it's unclear if this is fact or speculation. Windows. The bar was on the second floor. Were there windows that could be accessed? Reports vary on whether there were accessible windows. A second-floor window would be dangerous to climb out of. No evidence suggests Brian went out a window. Other doors or passages. Could there have been other doors, passages, or ways out that weren't immediately obvious? The building was modern and likely built to code, meaning emergency exits would exist. However, emergency exits typically have alarms. No alarms were reported that night. After Brian's disappearance, Columbus police thoroughly examined the Ugly Tuna and the building. They searched every part of the bar, storage areas, bathrooms, closets, the service areas and employee-only spaces, neighboring businesses and spaces in the building. They looked for signs Brian was still in the building, hiding, injured, deceased, alternative exits or ways out, any evidence of what happened to Brian. They found nothing, no trace of Brian anywhere in the building. Confirmation that the main entrance was the primary way in and out. Evidence of a service exit that employees used. Investigators obtained all security footage from the Ugly Tuna's entrance for the night of March 31 SD/early morning April 1st. What the footage showed: Brian entering the bar around midnight, confirmed. Brian near the entrance around 1:55 a.m., talking with the women, confirmed. Hundreds of people leaving between 2 a.m. and 2:30 a.m. as the bar closed. Clint Florence and Meredith Reed leaving. What the footage did not show: Brian Schaefer leaving through the main entrance at any point. Brian exiting with the women he'd been talking to. Brian leaving alone or with anyone else. The problem: this created an impossible situation. Brian was inside the bar. The main exit was covered by cameras. Brian is not seen leaving on camera. But Brian is not in the bar when it closes. So where did he go? Over the years, several theories have emerged about the security footage. Theory 1. Brian left during a camera blind spot. Security cameras don't capture every single moment. There are brief gaps when cameras switch or reset. Maybe Brian left during a split-second blind spot. Problems with this theory: the cameras were running continuously. While there might be microsecond gaps, it's unlikely Brian's entire exit went unrecorded. Dozens of other people were captured leaving. Why not Brian? Theory 2. Brian disguised himself. Maybe Brian put on a hat, jacket, or changed his appearance, so he looked different on camera leaving than when he entered. Problems with this theory: why would Brian do this? It would require planning, which doesn't fit the spontaneous nature of the night. Witnesses saw Brian inside without any costume or disguise. Theory 3. Brian left through a service exit. Brian somehow found or was led to the employee service exit and left that way. Problems with this theory: how would Brian know about this exit? Why would he use it instead of the main exit? Wouldn't staff have noticed a patron using an employee-only area? Theory 4. The footage has been misinterpreted. Some people believe Brian actually is in the footage leaving, but investigators misidentified him or missed him somehow. Problems with this theory: police reviewed the footage extensively. They knew what Brian looked like and what he was wearing. It seems unlikely they'd completely miss him. Theory 5. Brian never left. Maybe Brian is still in the building somewhere, dead or hidden. Problems with this theory: the building was searched thoroughly. Nearly 20 years later, no remains have been found. Where could a body be hidden for 2 decades without discovery? In the years since Brian's disappearance, the Ugly Tuna Saloona eventually closed. Years later, unrelated to Brian's case. The space has been renovated and occupied by other businesses. No evidence of Brian has ever been found during any renovations or changes. Security experts and investigators who've reviewed the case have noted it's highly unusual for someone to vanish from a location with camera coverage and only one exit. While no security system is perfect, the odds of someone leaving undetected are very low. The most likely explanation is either Brian used an alternative exit not covered by cameras, or something happened to him inside or immediately outside the building. The location where the Ugly Tuna Saloona operated is still there in the South Campus Gateway. The case remains one of Columbus's most famous unsolved mysteries, and the location is sometimes visited by true crime enthusiasts. But the building keeps its secrets. Whatever happened to Brian Schaefer, the Ugly Tuna isn't telling. Let's take a deeper look at the security footage and the timeline, because understanding exactly what the cameras show and don't show is crucial to this mystery. The timeline on camera, based on security footage reviewed by investigators. 11:45 p.m., approximately. Brian Schaefer, Clint Florence, and Meredith Reed are captured on camera entering the Ugly Tuna Saloona. Brian is wearing a white striped shirt and light-colored pants. He appears relaxed, smiling, in good spirits. The three enter together and go into the bar. 1:55 nachts. Brian is captured on camera in the entrance/escalator area of the bar. He is talking with two young women. He appears to be conversing normally. This is the last time Brian Schaefer is ever confirmed to be seen. 1:55 a.m. to 2 a.m. Multiple people exit the bar during this time. Camera captures various individuals and groups leaving. Brian is not among them. 2 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. The bar is closing. A steady stream of patrons exit. The camera captures dozens, maybe hundreds of people leaving. Clint Florence and Meredith Reed are seen leaving around 2 a.m. Brian is never seen leaving. After 2:30 a.m., the bar is closed. A few staff members are seen leaving after closing. No Brian. One of the most discussed elements of the case is the two women Brian was talking to at 1:55 a.m. What we know about them. They were captured on camera talking with Brian. They appear to be in their 20s. Neither Brian's friends nor investigators were able to identify them. It's unclear if they were Ohio State students, local residents, or tourists. What happened to them? They presumably left the bar at some point before or after 2 a.m. Were they captured leaving on camera? Some reports say yes, others are unclear. They never came forward to police. They were never definitively identified. Why this matters? These women were potentially the last people, besides bar staff, to see Brian. They may have information about his state of mind or his plans. Some theories suggest they may have been involved in what happened to Brian. However, there's no evidence of foul play involving them. After Brian's disappearance, Columbus police made public appeals. They released information about the two women. They asked them to come forward as witnesses. They emphasized the women were not suspects, just potential witnesses. The women never came forward publicly. There are a few possible explanations. They never saw the appeals. They didn't realize they were the women police were looking for. They had reasons not to want to talk to police, unrelated to Brian. They did talk to police anonymously, and we don't know about it. Over the years, amateur investigators and true crime enthusiasts have analyzed the security footage frame by frame, looking for Brian in disguise. Could Brian be one of the people leaving, but wearing different clothes? Could he have borrowed a jacket or hat? Analysis: unlikely. Brian's build, height, and general appearance don't match anyone seen leaving. Hidden figures. Is there someone in the background who could be Brian? Are there shadows or unclear images that might be him? Analysis: nothing conclusive. All figures have been accounted for or are clearly not Brian. Timing discrepancies. Could there be an error in the timestamp? Could the camera have stopped recording temporarily? Analysis: no evidence of timestamp errors or recording failures. Some people have suggested that there must be blind spots in the camera coverage, angles, or areas not visible to the cameras. Possible blind spots. The cameras couldn't see everywhere. There would be areas near walls, in corners, or at certain angles not fully visible. Someone might be able to exit the frame of one camera before entering the frame of another, creating a moment of invisibility. The entrance area might have had slight blind spots where someone could pass undetected. Counterarguments. The entrance was relatively narrow and focused, hard to pass through completely undetected. Even if Brian slipped past in a blind spot, it would require either luck or knowledge of camera placement. Other people leaving were captured. Why would Brian uniquely avoid detection? Investigators also looked for other camera footage in the area. Building security cameras. Were there other cameras in the South Campus Gateway building? Did they capture anything relevant? Reports suggest there were limited additional cameras and none showed Brian. Nearby business cameras. Cameras from neighboring businesses or street cameras. None captured Brian leaving the area. ATM or traffic cameras. Were there any ATM cameras, traffic cameras, or other surveillance in the vicinity? If Brian left the area by foot or vehicle, might he have been captured elsewhere? No such footage has been found or reported. Brian had his cell phone with him that night. Cell phone records and activity are crucial in missing persons cases. Brian's phone. Brian's phone was presumably with him at the Ugly Tuna. After his disappearance, calls to his phone went to voicemail. His phone either died, was turned off, or was destroyed. Cell phone records. Investigators obtained Brian's cell phone records. The records showed what towers his phone pinged before it went dead. However, details of these records have not been fully released publicly. Reports suggest his phone stopped transmitting signals shortly after his disappearance. What this tells us: if Brian left the area voluntarily, he either turned off his phone or it died. If something happened to Brian, his phone was likely lost, destroyed, or taken. The phone has never been recovered. Brian presumably had his wallet and ID with him. He would need ID to enter bars. He would need money/credit cards to buy drinks. His wallet has never been found or used. Credit card activity. Brian's credit cards showed no activity after his disappearance. No withdrawals from his bank accounts. No purchases or transactions. This is significant because if Brian disappeared voluntarily, he did so with no financial resources. If someone harmed Brian and took his wallet, they never used his cards or were never caught doing so. What the footage tells us. After nearly 20 years of analysis, here's what we can say with certainty about the security footage. Confirmed facts. Brian entered the Ugly Tuna around midnight. Brian was in the entrance area at 1:55 a.m. Brian is not seen leaving through the main entrance on any footage. Clint and Meredith left around 2 a.m. The bar closed and emptied by 2:30 a.m. What remains unknown? Whether Brian used an alternative exit not covered by cameras. Whether Brian was still in the building after closing, and if so, where? Whether Brian left with someone, the women, or someone else. Whether something happened to Brian inside the bar or building. Whether the cameras somehow failed to capture Brian's exit. The security footage creates an impossible scenario. Brian is documented entering, but not exiting. He's inside, but then he's not. He's there, and then he's gone. This single fact, the missing exit footage, is what makes the Brian Shaffer case so uniquely baffling. And it's what has kept investigators, family, and the public searching for answers for nearly 2 decades. When Brian Shaffer didn't come home on the night of April 1st, 2006, it took a little time for people to realize something was seriously wrong. Brian had plans to meet his girlfriend Alexis on April 1st. They were preparing for their Miami trip scheduled for April 3rd. When Brian didn't show up and didn't answer his phone, Alexis became concerned. She called him repeatedly. No answer. She called his apartment. No answer. She reached out to his friends. No one had seen him. When Alexis contacted Clint Florence asking if he knew where Brian was, Clint's response was, he had been with Brian the night before. They had gone to the Ugly Tuna. He assumed Brian had left separately and gone home. He didn't know where Brian was now. By late on April 1st or early April 2nd, Brian's family was notified that he was missing. His father, Randy, was immediately alarmed. His brother, Derek, joined the search. Alexis was distraught. This was completely unlike Brian. He was responsible. He stayed in touch. He had plans. Something was very wrong. The police investigation begins April 2nd. Columbus police were notified that Brian Shaffer was missing. Initially, there might have been some hesitation. Brian was an adult. He had been drinking the night before. Maybe he was sleeping it off somewhere. But Brian's family insisted this was not like him, and police began investigating. One of the first things investigators did was obtain security footage from the Ugly Tuna Saloon. This is when they made the disturbing discovery. Brian is clearly seen entering the bar. Brian is seen inside the bar area around 1:55 a.m. Brian is never seen leaving. This immediately elevated the case. This wasn't a young man who got drunk and forgot to call home. This was something else. In the first days after Brian's disappearance, police and family conducted extensive searches. The Ugly Tuna and Building. Police searched every inch of the Ugly Tuna. They searched the entire South Campus Gateway building. They looked in closets, storage areas, bathrooms, everywhere. They found nothing. The surrounding area. Police canvassed the Arena District. They interviewed employees of nearby businesses. They asked if anyone had seen Brian leaving the area. No witnesses came forward. Nearby locations. Police checked hospitals in case Brian was injured. They checked jails in case Brian was arrested for some reason and not yet processed. They checked homeless shelters. They checked abandoned buildings. Nothing. Brian's family immediately created and distributed missing person flyers. Photos of Brian. Description of what he was wearing. Last known location. Contact information. These flyers were posted throughout the Ohio State campus, in the Arena District, around Columbus, in nearby cities. By April 3rd to 4th, local media began covering the story. Medical student vanishes from Columbus bar. Man enters bar, never seen leaving, caught on camera. The unusual circumstances made it newsworthy. The story spread. Local TV news covered it extensively. Newspapers ran stories. Eventually, national media picked it up. The security footage angle made the case particularly compelling for media coverage. As days turned into weeks, the search intensified. Waterways. The Olentangy River runs through Columbus. Police searched the river and nearby waterways. Dive teams were deployed. Nothing was found. Dumpsters and trash. Investigators considered that if Brian died in or near the building, his body might have been disposed of in trash. Dumpsters and waste sites were searched. Nothing was found. Wooded areas and parks. Areas where someone might wander if disoriented or intoxicated. Search parties with volunteers combed through these areas. Nothing. Columbus police interviewed dozens of people. Clint Florence, as Brian's friend and the last known person with him, Clint was interviewed multiple times. His account: he left the bar around 2 a.m. with Meredith, assumed Brian left separately, didn't know what happened. Meredith Reed corroborated Clint's account, said she left with Clint around 2 a.m. Last saw Brian talking with the two women. Bar staff, bartenders, servers, bouncers who worked at the Ugly Tuna that night. None reported seeing anything unusual. None remembered seeing Brian after the rush of closing time. Other patrons. Police tried to identify and interview other people who were at the bar that night. This was challenging because it was a crowded night with hundreds of people. No one came forward with significant information. Investigators made significant efforts to identify the two women Brian was talking to. They released descriptions and asked them to come forward. They checked Ohio State student databases. They followed up on tips about possible identities. Despite these efforts, the women were never definitively identified or never came forward. Brian's girlfriend Alexis was devastated. She cooperated fully with investigators. She provided information about Brian's state of mind, his plans, his habits. She insisted Brian would never disappear voluntarily. She maintained that something terrible must have happened. Brian's father, Randy, became the public face of the search. He appeared on TV news programs. He organized search efforts. He offered rewards for information. He hired private investigators. He never gave up hope. Randy's dedication to finding his son was absolute. He spent his savings, his time, everything trying to find Brian. Strange detail number 1. Clint Florence's behavior. As the investigation continued, something unusual emerged. Clint Florence, Brian's best friend, refused to take a polygraph test. The request. Police asked Clint to take a polygraph as part of routine investigation. They emphasized he wasn't a suspect, but as the last person with Brian, his full cooperation would help. Clint's response. Clint refused to take the polygraph. He obtained a lawyer, which is his right. He stopped cooperating with certain aspects of the investigation. Why this is significant. In missing persons cases, it's common for police to polygraph close friends and family to rule them out. Refusing creates suspicion, even if legally justified. Many people questioned, what is Clint hiding? Clint's explanation. Clint and his lawyer maintained he had nothing to do with Brian's disappearance. He said he refused the polygraph on legal advice. Polygraphs are not always reliable and can be problematic. He said he cooperated with the investigation in other ways. The impact. Some people, including some members of Brian's family, became suspicious of Clint. Others defended him, saying refusing a polygraph is a smart legal move and doesn't indicate guilt. The relationship between Clint and Brian's family became strained. Strange detail number 2, the construction theory. Some reports suggested there was construction or renovation work happening in or near the South Campus Gateway building. The theory, if there was active construction, there might have been temporary exits, unlocked doors, or openings. Brian could have wandered into a construction area. He could have fallen, gotten trapped, or been injured. His body could be sealed in walls, in foundations, or in areas that were under construction. Problems with this theory. Details about construction are vague and conflicting. No definitive evidence that significant construction was happening at that exact time. If Brian died in a construction accident in the building, wouldn't his body have been found during subsequent work? However, some people remain convinced this is the answer. They believe Brian is somewhere in the building structure. They point to cases where bodies have been found years later in buildings. Strange detail number 3, the smiley face murder theory. In the mid-2000s, a controversial theory emerged about a series of deaths of young men across the Midwest. The theory, young men, often college students, were disappearing after nights of drinking. Their bodies were later found in waterways. At some locations, smiley face graffiti was found nearby. Some investigators theorized a serial killer or group of killers was targeting these men. Connection to Brian. Brian fit the profile. Young, male college student, disappeared after drinking. Some people wondered if Brian was a victim of the smiley face killers. Problems with this theory. Most law enforcement agencies have rejected the smiley face killer theory as coincidence rather than serial killings. Brian's body has never been found in water, though it's possible. There's no direct evidence connecting Brian's case to this theory. Strange detail number 4, Brian's apartment. After Brian disappeared, investigators searched his apartment. What they were looking for: signs of planning to disappear, missing clothes, packed bags, withdrawn money, suicide notes, or signs of mental distress, evidence of threats, debts, or problems in Brian's life. What they found: nothing unusual. Brian's apartment was normal, the apartment of a busy medical student. His belongings were there. No signs of planning to leave. No notes. No indications of problems. What this tells us: Brian didn't plan to disappear. He expected to return home. His disappearance was not premeditated on his part. Strange detail number 5, the phone calls. In the weeks after Brian disappeared, there were reports of strange phone activity. Randy Schaefer's phone. Brian's father, Randy, reported receiving a call from Brian's cell phone number. When he answered, there was no one there, just static or silence. The call came from Brian's phone, but no one spoke. Was it really Brian's phone? Phone records were checked. The call may have been a glitch, a mistake, or something else. It was never definitively explained. What this meant: if it was really from Brian's phone, then someone had the phone after Brian disappeared. Or it was a technical error. It gave Randy brief hope that Brian might be alive. Strange detail number 6, the band theory. One peculiar theory that emerged was related to a band that had been playing near the Ugly Tuna that night. The theory: a band was performing somewhere in the South Campus Gateway area. They would have been loading equipment, using service entrances. Maybe Brian somehow got involved with the band, either helping them, leaving with them, or encountering them in a service area. Problems with this theory: no evidence Brian had any interaction with any band. No witnesses placed Brian with any musicians or equipment loading. It seems like speculation without foundation. Brian's family offered a substantial reward for information leading to finding Brian. Initially $50,000, later increased. The reward was publicized widely. Despite the money offered, no credible tips led to Brian. As 2006 turned to 2007, then 2008, the active investigation slowed. Police followed up on tips as they came in. The family continued searching, but there were no breaks in the case. In 2008, Brian's father, Randy Schaefer, died. He had been battling health issues, likely exacerbated by the stress of searching for Brian. Randy died, never knowing what happened to his son. This was a devastating blow to the family and to everyone following the case. Before he died, Randy said in interviews, "I just want to know what happened. I want to bring my son home." After Randy's death, Brian's brother Derek took up the search. He continued publicizing the case. He maintained social media pages dedicated to finding Brian. He followed up on tips. He never gave up. Brian's girlfriend, Alexis, eventually moved on with her life. She married someone else. She has expressed that she will always wonder what happened to Brian. She has stated that not knowing is the hardest part. The case goes cold. By the 2010s, Brian's case was effectively cold. No new leads, no evidence, no body, no answers. But the case never disappeared from public consciousness because of the security footage. The video of Brian entering but never leaving the Ugly Tuna continued to circulate online, keeping the mystery alive. In recent years, true crime podcasts and YouTube channels have covered Brian's case. Internet sleuths continue to analyze the security footage. The case is periodically featured in Unsolved Mysteries type programs. Derek Schaefer occasionally posts updates asking for continued attention to the case. As of 2025, nearly 19 years after Brian's disappearance, the case remains officially open with Columbus Police. No remains have ever been found. No definitive evidence of what happened has emerged. Brian Schaefer's fate remains unknown. The investigation revealed many details but answered no fundamental questions. Brian walked into a bar and vanished. How? Why? Where'd he go? No one knows. For almost 2 decades, investigators, family, and amateur sleuths have proposed theories about what happened to Brian Schaefer. Let's examine the major theories and the evidence for and against each. Theory 1. Accidental death in the building. Brian died accidentally somewhere in the South Campus Gateway building. He went through a service exit looking for a bathroom or because he was disoriented. He fell, got trapped, or suffered an injury. He died in a location that wasn't thoroughly searched or was sealed off during construction. His body remains in the building to this day. Evidence supporting this theory. The construction angle. If there was construction happening, there could have been dangerous areas, open shafts, unsealed spaces. Brian could have fallen or become trapped. Intoxication. Brian had been drinking for hours. Alcohol impairs judgment and coordination. He might have made a fatal mistake. The service exit. If Brian used a service exit, he could have ended up in parts of the building unfamiliar to him. He could have gotten lost, fallen downstairs, or encounter a hazard. No body found elsewhere. Despite extensive searches of the surrounding area, no body was found. This suggests Brian might still be in or very near the building. Evidence against this theory. Thorough searches. The building was searched extensively multiple times. Cadaver dogs were used. Nearly 20 years later, no remains have been found. Decomposition. A body decomposing in the building would have created smell. Staff, tenants, or visitors would have noticed. Subsequent renovations. Over the years, the space has been renovated multiple times. Wouldn't a body have been discovered during this work? Likelihood, medium. Many investigators consider this a plausible theory, particularly if construction created unusual circumstances. However, the lack of any discovery in nearly 20 years is problematic. Theory 2. Voluntary disappearance. Brian deliberately disappeared to start a new life. He was grieving his mother. He felt overwhelmed by medical school. He had doubts about his future with Alexis. He used the bar as an opportunity to vanish. He knew about a service exit and used it to leave undetected. He started a new life somewhere else. Evidence supporting this theory. Stress factors. Brian's mother had just died. Medical school is extremely stressful. Maybe Brian was overwhelmed. The clean disappearance. Brian vanished so completely, maybe it was planned. No body, no evidence, because he's alive somewhere. Intelligence. Brian was smart enough to disappear successfully if he wanted to. Evidence against this theory. This is generally considered the weakest theory by those close to Brian and investigators. No motive. Brian was excited about the Miami trip. He was succeeding in medical school. He loved Alexis and his family. He had no reason to run. No preocupación. Brian took no money beyond what he had for the night. He didn't pack anything. He didn't access bank accounts before or after. No evidence of planning. No sightings. In 19 years, no credible sightings despite media coverage. Brian had distinctive features. Someone would have recognized him. His character. Everyone who knew Brian says this is completely out of character. He was close with his family. He wouldn't put them through this. He was responsible. He wouldn't abandon his life. Financial records. No bank account activity. No credit card use. No social security number usage. If Brian is alive, he's living completely off the grid with no resources. Likelihood, very low. Almost everyone familiar with the case rejects this theory. Nothing about Brian's personality, preparation, or circumstances suggests voluntary disappearance. Theory 3. Foul play. Murdered by someone he knew. Brian was murdered by someone he knew. Possibly Clint Florence or someone else in his circle. An argument or confrontation occurred. Brian was killed. The killers disposed of the body. Clint's refusal to take a polygraph suggests guilty knowledge. Evidence supporting this theory. Clint's behavior. His refusal to take a polygraph is suspicious to many. His cooperation with police was limited after getting a lawyer. He was the last known person with Brian. The clean disappearance. Someone familiar with the building might know how to help Brian leave undetected. Someone with a car could have transported Brian's body. Motive speculation. Was there jealousy, conflict, or something in Brian and Clint's relationship that wasn't public? Did something happen that night that escalated? Evidence against this theory. No evidence. There is zero physical evidence linking Clint or anyone else to foul play. No witnesses saw an altercation. No forensic evidence suggests violence. Motive. What would be the motive? Brian and Clint were best friends. No known conflicts between them. Clint's actions. Refusing a polygraph is legally smart, not necessarily evidence of guilt. Many innocent people refuse polygraphs on attorney advice. Logistics. How would Clint murder Brian in a crowded bar unnoticed? How would he dispose of the body so completely. Meredith was with Clint. She'd be a witness. Likelihood, low. While Clint's behavior raised questions, there's no actual evidence of foul play by him or anyone Brian knew. This theory is mostly based on suspicion rather than facts. Theory 4. Foul play, murdered by strangers. Brian was killed by strangers, possibly the two women he was talking to or other individuals. Brian left with the women or followed them. They lured him somewhere, maybe through a service exit or to another location. He was robbed, assaulted, or killed. His body was disposed of. Evidence supporting this theory. The two women. They were never identified. They were talking with Brian shortly before he vanished. They might have lured him away. Serial killer possibility. The smiley face killer. Theory suggests young men were being targeted. Brian fits the victim profile. The complete disappearance. If professionals or experienced criminals were involved, they might know how to dispose of a body completely. Evidence against this theory. No evidence of struggle. No witnesses heard or saw anything violent. No blood or signs of altercation found anywhere. Why target Brian? Brian wasn't wealthy. Why rob him? Random killings in crowded bars are extremely rare. What would be the motive? The women. No evidence they were involved in anything criminal. They might simply have been bar patrons who didn't realize they should come forward. Body disposal. Disposing of a body so completely that it's never found is extremely difficult. How would strangers transport Brian's body from a busy bar district unnoticed? Likelihood, low to medium. While possible, there's no concrete evidence of foul play by strangers. This theory requires speculation about criminal intent with no supporting facts. Theory 5. Accidental death outside the building. Brian did leave the ugly tuna through an alternative exit not covered by cameras. He went outside through a service exit, emergency exit, or construction opening. He was intoxicated and disoriented. He wandered away from the building. He fell, was hit by a car, drowned, or suffered some other accident. His body is in a location that hasn't been thoroughly searched. Evidence supporting this theory. Alternative exits existed. Service exits, emergency exits, or construction openings could have allowed Brian to leave without being on camera. Intoxication. Brian had been drinking for hours. He could have been more impaired than friends realized. Alcohol-related accidents are common. Bodies can be hard to find. Numerous cases exist of bodies being found years later in areas that were searched. Rivers, ravines, abandoned buildings can hide remains. The phone going dead. Brian's phone stopped transmitting, consistent with falling in water or dying. Evidence against this theory. Extensive searches. The area around the building was searched thoroughly. Waterways were searched. No evidence of Brian was found. Weather and exposure. It was early April in Ohio, cold but not extreme. If Brian died of exposure, his body should have been found relatively quickly. Someone would have seen him. The arena district had people around, even at 2 a.m. If Brian was stumbling around drunk, someone should have seen him. Likelihood, medium to high. This is considered one of the more likely scenarios by some investigators. If Brian left through an alternative exit and had an accident, it would explain the lack of camera footage and the disappearance. Theory 6. Combination theory. Accident involving service exit. This theory combines elements of others. Brian, possibly intoxicated and or looking for a bathroom or different way out, found a service exit. He went through the exit into an unfamiliar area, back corridors, loading dock, construction zone. He fell, got trapped, or encountered a hazard. He died in a location that's either within the building structure or just outside it. His remains are in a spot that wasn't properly searched or has been inadvertently sealed. Why this theory appeals to many. It explains the lack of camera footage. He used an alternative exit. It explains why he wasn't found in obvious locations. He's in an unusual spot. It doesn't require assuming foul play or voluntary disappearance. It fits with Brian's likely state, drinking, possibly disoriented. The problem: nearly 20 years later, no remains have been found. Where exactly could Brian be that he's never been discovered? Likelihood, medium to high. Many people familiar with the case believe something like this is the most probable explanation, even if the exact details will never be known. Theory 7. Still alive somewhere. Brian is still alive. He had amnesia from hitting his head. He's living somewhere with no memory of who he is. Or he's living under a new identity for unknown reasons. Evidence supporting this theory. No body. In 19 years, no remains have been found. Maybe that's because Brian is alive. The mysterious phone call. Randy received a call from Brian's phone. Maybe it was Brian trying to reach out. Evidence against this theory. No sightings. Not one credible sighting in 19 years. Brian's face has been publicized. Someone would recognize him. No activity. No financial activity. No social media. No trace at all. Living completely off the grid for 19 years is nearly impossible in modern society. Medical training. Brian had medical training. Even with amnesia, certain skills and knowledge might surface. No reports of anyone with Brian's profile appearing anywhere. Likelihood, extremely low. While families of missing persons understandably hold hope their loved ones are alive, the likelihood Brian survived and has lived 19 years without any trace is virtually zero. The most likely scenario. Based on analysis of the evidence, most investigators believe Brian Schaefer left the Ugly Tuna Saloon through a service exit or alternative exit not covered by security cameras. In an intoxicated state, he either had an accident in or near the building, fell, got trapped, injured, and died, with his remains in a location that was inadequately searched or has been inadvertently sealed off, or wandered away from the building and died from an accident, fall, drowning, hit by vehicle, with his body in a location that hasn't been thoroughly searched or has been concealed by natural circumstances. The lack of remains after 19 years is the biggest mystery. However, cases exist of bodies being found decades later in seemingly searched areas. What we can say with confidence: Brian did not plan to disappear. He entered the Ugly Tuna and did not exit through the main entrance. Something happened to Brian that night that resulted in his death or disappearance. The truth may never be known without the discovery of remains or new evidence. It's been nearly 19 years since Brian Schaefer disappeared. In that time, his case has become one of the most discussed unsolved mysteries in American true crime. The impact on Brian's family. The Schaefer family has been forever changed by Brian's disappearance. Brian's father, Randy, dedicated the last 2 years of his life to finding his son. He appeared on countless news programs. He organized searches. He spent his savings on private investigators. He offered rewards. He refused to give up hope. In interviews before his death, Randy would say, "I just want to bring my son home. Every day, I wake up and wonder if today will be the day we find him. I need to know what happened before I die." Tragically, Randy died in 2008, never knowing Brian's fate. His death was attributed to health issues, but those close to him say the stress and heartbreak of losing Brian undoubtedly contributed. Randy is buried in Ohio. There's a space reserved next to him for Brian, if he's ever found. Brian's brother Derek has carried on the search. His efforts maintains social media pages dedicated to finding Brian. responds to tips and leads, keeps Brian's case in the public eye, participates in true crime documentaries and podcasts about the case. His perspective. Derek has stated he believes Brian is deceased. He wants closure, to find Brian's remains and lay him to rest. He has expressed frustration with certain aspects of the investigation. He has continued to question Clint Florence's lack of cooperation. Derek's life. Derek has had to build a life while living with the mystery of his brother's disappearance. He has said the not knowing is the worst part. Every call, every potential lead brings both hope and dread. Brian's girlfriend Alexis has largely stayed out of the public eye. She cooperated with investigators at the time. She eventually moved on with her life and married someone else. She has occasionally spoken about Brian in interviews. She has said she will always wonder what happened, but has had to find peace with not knowing. Clint Florence, Brian's best friend, has lived under a cloud of suspicion for years. The suspicion. His refusal to take a polygraph made many people suspicious. Some members of Brian's family have questioned whether Clint knows more than he's saying. Online sleuths have accused him of involvement. Clint's life. Clint finished medical school and became a doctor. He has largely avoided speaking publicly about Brian's case. He has maintained his innocence of any wrongdoing. The case has undoubtedly affected his life and reputation. The question, does Clint know something he hasn't shared? Or is he an innocent friend who made a legal decision to protect himself and has been unfairly vilified? We may never know. The impact on the Columbus community. Brian's disappearance has had lasting effects on Columbus. The Ugly Tuna Saloon. The bar became infamous because of Brian's case. It eventually closed years later, not directly due to the case. The location is sometimes visited by true crime enthusiasts. It remains a local legend, the bar where that guy disappeared. Ohio State University. Brian's case is well known among OSU students and alumni. It's a cautionary tale about bar safety. It's a reminder that tragedy can strike anyone. Bar safety. Brian's case has been cited in discussions about bar safety, buddy systems, and looking out for friends. Don't let your friends leave alone has become more emphasized. The role of internet sleuths. Brian's case has become a favorite of online true crime communities. Reddit, web sleuths, Facebook groups. Dedicated forums discuss Brian's case. Users analyze the security footage frame by frame. Theories are proposed and debated. Tips are sometimes generated. YouTube and podcasts. Dozens of YouTube videos analyze the case. True crime podcasts have covered Brian's story. Each new generation of true crime fans discovers the case. The double-edged sword. Online attention keeps the case alive and could generate legitimate tips, but it also spreads misinformation, accuses innocent people, and can be painful for the family. Lessons from Brian's case. Brian Schaefer's disappearance offers several important lessons. 1. Document your movements. Let people know where you're going. Check in with friends or family. Share your location if possible. 2. Stay with your group. Don't let friends leave bars alone, especially if they've been drinking. Have a buddy system. Make sure everyone gets home safely. 3. Be aware of exits. Know where you are and how to get out. Don't wander into unfamiliar areas, especially when intoxicated. 4. Security cameras aren't perfect. Just because a location has cameras doesn't mean everything is captured. Blind spots, alternative exits, and camera failures can occur. 5. Take polygraph decisions seriously. If you're close to someone who disappears, understand that refusing cooperation looks suspicious. While you have legal rights, consider the impact on the investigation and the family. Where the case stands today, 2025. As of 2025, official status. Brian's case remains open with Columbus Police. It's classified as a missing persons case. Detectives follow up on tips as they come in, but there are no active leads. What would help? Discovery of remains. A witness coming forward with information. Confession or revelation from someone with knowledge. new technology, or search methods revealing evidence. The reality: after 19 years, the likelihood of solving the case without finding remains is low. Unless someone stumbles upon Brian's body or someone with guilty knowledge comes forward, the mystery will likely remain. What makes Brian's case so compelling and frustrating is the fundamental impossibility. A man walks into a bar. The entrance is covered by cameras. The man is inside. The bar closes. The man is gone. The cameras never show him leaving. It shouldn't be possible. What happened? Where's Brian Schaefer? This is the question that has haunted everyone involved with this case for nearly 2 decades. Is he in the building? Sealed in a wall? In a crawl space? In a location never properly searched? Is he in the surrounding area? In the Olentangy River? In a dumpster that went to a landfill? In a location searched but missed? Is he far away? Did he somehow leave Columbus and die elsewhere? Is he still alive? Against all odds, is Brian living somewhere with no memory or under a new identity? We don't know. And after 19 years, we may never know. A message to Brian. If, by some miracle, Brian Schaefer is alive and sees this, your family loves you. They've been searching for you for 19 years. Your father died not knowing what happened to you. Your brother continues to look for you. You have people who care and who want to know you're okay. If you can come forward, please do. If you can't, know that you're not forgotten. A message to anyone with information. If you were at the Ugly Tuna Saloon on April 1st, 2006, if you were one of the 2 women talking with Brian, if you worked at the bar, if you saw anything, heard anything, know anything. It's been 19 years. Circumstances change. Loyalties fade. Secrets become burdens. If you have information, please come forward. You can do so anonymously. You can contact Columbus Police Division, Brian's family through social media, anonymous tip lines. Even if what you know seems small or insignificant, it might be the piece that finally solves this puzzle. Brian Schaefer was 27 years old when he disappeared. He would be 46 now. He was a son, a brother, a boyfriend, a friend. He was a medical student on the verge of becoming a doctor. He had dreams, plans, a future. One night, in April 2006, all of that ended or changed forever. We don't know if Brian died that night, or days later, or if by some incredible chance he's still alive somewhere. We don't know if he's at peace or still suffering. We don't know if his disappearance was accident, crime, or something else entirely. What we know is this: a young man walked into a bar and never walked out. Security cameras, witnesses, investigators, and 19 years of searching have failed to answer the simple question: what happened to Brian Schaefer? The Ugly Tuna Saloon may have closed its doors years ago, but the mystery it holds remains open. Somewhere, somehow, there are answers. They're waiting in the shadows of that building, in the memory of a witness who never came forward, in the conscience of someone who knows something, or in a location that's never been properly searched. Brian Schaefer deserves to be found. His family deserves answers. And perhaps someday, those answers will finally come to light. Until then, the case remains one of the most baffling unsolved mysteries in American history. A reminder that sometimes people can simply vanish, even when we're watching them on camera. For Brian, for Randy, for Derek, for everyone who's still searching, the case remains open. The search continues, and the question remains: where is Brian Schaefer? Before we close this case file, I need to talk to you about something really important. This isn't just about hitting buttons on a screen. This is about potentially solving a 19-year-old mystery. Here's the truth about cold cases. Most cold cases don't get solved by new forensic technology or dramatic detective work. They get solved because someone who knew something finally decides to speak up. They get solved because a witness who never came forward finally sees something that reminds them of what they saw. They get solved because a piece of information that seemed meaningless at the time suddenly clicks into place. And that's where you come in. The power of social media in solving cold cases. In the last decade, social media has helped solve dozens of cold cases. Here's how it works. Someone watches a video like this. They share it on their Facebook, their Reddit, their Twitter. That share reaches someone who is connected to the case. Maybe they were at Ohio State in 2006. Maybe they worked in the Arena District. Maybe they knew someone who was at the Ugly Tuna that night. That person remembers something, sees something in the footage, or realizes they have information. They contact police. The case gets solved. This has actually happened multiple times, but it only works if you share this video. So here's what I need you to do right now. First, subscribe to Untold Cold Cases Files. When you subscribe, here's what happens. YouTube shows our videos to more people. More cases get the attention they deserve. More families get closure. More killers and criminals get caught. We're building a community of people who refuse to let these cases be forgotten. We have hundreds more cases to cover. Each one is someone's loved one. Each one deserves justice. Hit that subscribe button. Be part of the solution. Second, like this video right now. I'm serious. Pause the video if you need to and click that like button. Here's why. YouTube's algorithm is simple. Videos with high like-to-view ratios get pushed to more people. More views means more potential witnesses see Brian's face. More people in Columbus see this video. More people from Ohio State's 2006 class see this video. Higher chance someone with information finally comes forward. Your one click on that like button could literally be the action that gets this video in front of the right person. Don't scroll past it. Do it now. Third, share this video, and I'm going to tell you exactly how. Don't just think, I'll share it later. You won't. We all do this. We mean to share things, and then we forget. So right now, while you're watching this, I want you to, on Facebook, post this video to your timeline with a caption. This medical student walked into a bar in Columbus, Ohio in 2006 and was never seen leaving. If you were at Ohio State or in Columbus in 2006, please watch this. Post it in any Ohio State groups you're in. Post it in any true crime groups you're in. Send it to any friends who lived in Columbus or went to OSU. On Reddit, share to our /unresolved mysteries. Share to our /true crime. Share to our /Columbus. Share to our /OSU, Ohio State University subreddit. On Twitter /X. Tweet the link with hashtags. Hashtag Brian Schaefer, hashtag Ugly Tuna, hashtag Columbus, hashtag Ohio State, hashtag Missing Person, hashtag Cold Case. Tag Columbus Police at Columbus Police. Tag Ohio State at Ohio State. Via text or email. Think of someone you know who lived in Columbus in 2006, went to Ohio State around that time, works in law enforcement, is interested in true crime, has a large social media following. Send them this video right now. Fourth, specific actions if you have connections to this case. If you went to Ohio State between 2004 to 2008, you might know something without realizing it. Watch this video carefully. Look at Brian's face. Were you in any of his classes? Did you ever see him around campus? Were you at the Ugly Tuna on March 31 SD/April 1st, 2006? Even if you don't remember him specifically, share this video with your OSU classmates from that era. If you lived in Columbus in 2006, did you work in the Arena District? Did you work at any of the bars Brian visited that night? Did you work in the South Campus Gateway? Share this with people you worked with back then. If you were at the Ugly Tuna Saloona that night, even if you didn't see Brian specifically, you might have seen something relevant. Contact Columbus Police. They want to talk to everyone who was there. If you were one of the two women Brian was talking to, you are not in trouble. Police have made this clear. You're witnesses, not suspects. They just want to know what Brian said, what his state of mind was, if he mentioned leaving or going anywhere. Please come forward. You can do it anonymously if you prefer. If you worked at the Ugly Tuna or in the South Campus Gateway building, think back to that night. Did you notice anything unusual? Any service doors left open? Any construction areas accessible? Anything at all? Fifth, financial support, if you can. If you're able, consider becoming a channel member here on YouTube, supporting us on Patreon. Sharing this video counts as support if you can't contribute financially. Your financial support helps us travel to locations to interview witnesses, hire experts to analyze evidence, Work with private investigators. Produce higher quality, more in-depth content. Dedicate more time to researching these cases. Sixth, check out our other videos. We have dozens of other cold cases covered on this channel. Each one is someone's unsolved mystery. Each one needs your help spreading awareness. Binge our content. Share the cases that resonate with you. Why this actually matters. I want you to imagine you're Derek Schaefer, Brian's brother. For 19 years, you've been searching for your brother. You followed every lead. You spent countless hours wondering what happened. You've lived with the grief of not knowing. Now imagine someone watching this video has information. Maybe they were at the bar that night. Maybe they saw something. Maybe they know something. But they don't share this video. They watch it, they think that's interesting, and they move on. And because they didn't share it, the person who really needs to see it, maybe a friend of theirs, maybe a former coworker, maybe someone in their social circle, never sees it. And Derek never gets answers. Brian never gets found. The case stays cold forever. You have the power to change that. One share, one like, one subscription. That's all it takes to keep this case alive and potentially solve it. The reality. This isn't just entertainment. This isn't just a mystery to solve. This is a real family, still grieving, still searching, still hoping that someone out there knows something. Brian Schaefer was a real person. He had hopes and dreams. He was going to be a doctor. He was going to help people. He was in love. And then one night, he vanished. His family deserves answers. He deserves to be found. And you can help make that happen. So I'm asking you one more time. Subscribe to Untold Cold Cases Files. Be part of the community that solves these cases. Like this video. Help the algorithm show it to the people who need to see it. Share this video. You might be the link between this case and the person with answers. Comment below. Tell me what you think happened. Share any theories. Tag anyone who might have information. If you have information, contact Columbus Police Division 614-645-4545. Central Ohio Crime Stoppers 1-877-645-TIPS 8477. Anonymous tips accepted. Bring Brian Schaefer home Facebook page. You can send a message there. Email Columbus Police. You can find their contact email on their website. You can remain anonymous. You will not get in trouble for coming forward, even if you were underage drinking that night, even if you were doing things you shouldn't have been doing. The police just want information about Brian. Right now, there's someone out there who knows what happened to Brian Schaefer. Maybe they don't realize what they know is important. Maybe they've been too scared to come forward. Maybe they think it's too late. It's not too late. It's never too late. And maybe, just maybe, that person will see this video, but only if you share it. So do it. Right now. Don't wait. Don't scroll to the next video. Don't close this tab. Share this video. Subscribe to this channel. Like this video. Help us bring Brian Schaefer home. This is Untold Cold Cases Files, where every missing person matters. Every case deserves investigation, and every family deserves answers. For Brian. For Randy, who never got to say goodbye. For Derek, who's still searching. For Alexis, who lost the love of her life. For everyone who's ever wondered what happened that night. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And most importantly, thank you for taking action. See you in the next case file. Until then, stay safe, look out for each other, and if you know something, say something. Brian Schaefer is still out there somewhere. And together, we're going to find him.